Okay, awesome. Hi, Melanie. Thank you so much for joining me and agreeing to talk to the Bull City Film Festival. Congrats on your awesome short Heat Wave, which you wrote and directed.
Yes, I co-directed, but yeah.
Co-directed, right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, can you
Thank
give
you.
us like a quick snapshot of your career and like how you got to where you are right now?
Yeah. So I grew up in Connecticut, and I went to film school out in Long Island at LIU Post, and got my honors BFA there, and then kind of just hung out in Brooklyn doing theater and weird film for a while, and then uh, on a whim applied to Northwestern's writing for screen and stage MFA program, and then got in. So I moved to Chicago, and then just spent. I graduated in June, so I spent the last 2 years in here in Chicago right now, and have been writing and television, film, plays, and then the Heatwave was the first script I wrote for my first class in grad school, and then we made it that summer in my parents' house. So
Oh, cool.
yeah,
That's your parents' house then?
yeah.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I don't know how long ago that was, but do you remember how the idea for Heat Wave came about? Like, do you remember that moment?
Yeah. So it was 20, what is today? 2021. So it's 2018. And, and then we made it in 2019. So it was, I wanted to look into what a weekend with adult women would look like if you had your background was your whole childhood with someone. I have an older sister. I also have a mother, and so it was kind of like, how do those power dynamics change when you're also an adult, and how does your mother? Does she become your friend? Does she always mother you? Are you always going to get yelled at for doing bad things? And so I was interested in looking into that, and then kind of started having this idea that Zoe should be the main character. Zoe should be slightly not unlikable, but just you're going to have some questions about if she's moral or not. And that's kind of, I started with those ideas, and wanted to be able to produce it. So I knew it had to be a producible script, which is why it's set in Connecticut, where it's set, because I knew what the house would look like.
Right. Yeah, and I noticed Zoe, who's sort of like this morally ambiguous character, she does come from the city and she sort of returns back to her roots. I was wondering what drew you to that specific sort of city versus small town life conflict, or if that was in your head while you were creating it.
Yeah. I like this idea of the difference in pacing, especially with the New York pacing in the beginning, and it's all this whole, I don't know, it's just faster paced and a little bit more chaotic in the beginning, and then for this train ride to go home to a very calm town of Mystic, Connecticut, and it's just really calm, and I think to most people that would be lovely. I personally also think it's lovely, but for that character, it's kind of like the slowness and calmness of it is a negative thing. And then throughout the weekend, she's like, oh, it's not that bad, and I think she holds, and I was interested, which is why I did it, having the main character almost disrespect her sister and her mother for wanting this calm, quaint lifestyle for themselves while she's like doing crazy things in the city, and then she comes back and is like, and tries to learn that it's both is good. Calm lifestyle is fine.
Yeah.
City lifestyle is also fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so sort of trying to find peace between those two worlds.
Yeah, and I think there's so often a negative thing, and I know growing up in a very calm small town, it's like you just want to escape, and you want to escape quickly, and you want to escape to the city, and I did, and I go home and I'm like, this was great. Like, why did I think? And I think they're so often at odds in storytelling, and I think in the real world they aren't. You can like both.
Yeah.
They're nice.
Yeah, definitely. There's sort of a grass is always greener type of mindset where you want to be here if you grew up in one place and then the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And back to Zoe being like a complicated character, she seems very, very likable. Like she's always like, you have that nice scene where she's dancing when she meets her sister. She just does these cute, quirky things, but she's done some questionable stuff. Have you always been sort of drawn to that complicated protagonist?
Yeah, I think so. I look back at what I enjoy watching as well, and it's often these complicated women who are I don't even know, not just Fleabag, but also I just finished rather The Good Wife, and all of these characters, these women specifically, and as like a human woman, I also find that like sometimes you're not always good, you're not always bad. And so I also think Zoe is wonderful. I think she's making young decisions, and they're exciting, and I don't think they're wrong. I was interested in making her that way so that an audience is confused as she is also confused. And then seeing as she is the other woman for Ian, then she's now seeing it as her mother is that woman. And so, and I think I'm interested in watching women, specifically women, female characters who do have that balance of bad and good. I do like making an audience slightly uncomfortable with the work I make. And so I feel like that's one of those moments where it's like, oh, he's married. And then going into the weekend, it's like, oh God. So yeah, definitely interested in that.
There's definitely a lot of tension there, knowing what you know and seeing her go through this thing with her mom, going through the other side of that. And it's actually funny that you mentioned Fleabag, because I was actually thinking, this reminds me a lot of like Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character. So speaking of that, do you have any other huge like influences or people that you sort of inspired you, or filmmakers or films specifically? Obviously Fleabag and The Good Wife that you mentioned.
The Good Wife, yes. I feel like during this pandemic as well, I've just fallen head over heels in love with the writers of The Good Wife. Robert and Michelle King are perfect people.
Oh yeah.
But I think for writers in general, I'm a huge Sarah Rule fan for theater. Claire, also her, but Annie Baker for plays as well. And I think, there's so many films that I love and so many films that I'm drawn to. I think I just saw Promising Young Woman, and
I saw that.
So good. And Portrait of a Lady on Fire, just fantastic films. But I always have been. I really, really love. Oh God, now I'm gonna forget his name. The director who this is so uncommon. The director who did Shame and oh my God.
Sorry, that's escaping me too. I don't know either.
Shame and 12 Years a Slave, and he did Hunger. I know him. I talk about him all the time. I'm so sorry. Well, it's recording, so I'm not going to Google it. But him, I watched his film Hunger in film school, and the pacing of it, the tension of it, and oh my God, I am so sorry. You
can Google it. It's fine. We're right at our computers. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. Because it's gonna drive me nuts. But his use of pacing was incredible. Steve McQueen. Of course. Oh my God. So sorry about that. So Steve McQueen. I saw his film Hunger in film school. And didn't know films could be that way, and it's just so incredibly uncomfortable to watch in such a good way, and so that's kind of gone into everything I've made ever since. Just like the being uncomfortable, and I think that goes back to Promising Young Woman as well. It's just like you can't look away, but oh my God, you're so uncomfortable.
I know,
in such a good way.
Definitely. So you like making people uncomfortable. That definitely comes through.
Good.
Good job.
Oh, thank you.
So this also has kind of an ambiguous ending, at least I thought, where you don't know if she's going to leave Ian or if she's going to stay with him. Do you sort of know in your own head what's going to happen next, or is it just as much a mystery to you as it is to the viewer?
Yeah, so actually it's so interesting the whole ending drastically changed in the editing room. And so we have all the scenes that we cut, and I still used to have a normal ending, which you still didn't know what she was going to do, but it was a bit more set. She goes back to the train station and is going to hop on a train to go back to New York after the weekend's over, and Ian texts her and she doesn't respond. And so you're kind of like, well, you don't need to know the answer, I think, at that point.
Right.
But that scene that is now the ending was supposed to be in the beginning, and it works. I don't know. We felt like it worked better this way, and
Mhm.
that she's not going back to New York immediately, and it's less bookending. And there is something just again uncomfortable about it, and I don't know. I think I've rewritten it 1,000 times, and I feel like the first version she wasn't going to get back with him, and then the second version she was, and I think it's just too. It's too. Just because she has this one weekend, a part of me is like she's gonna go back to him, because just because she has this
Right.
end where she's like, oh, this is how it feels to be uncomfortable, and this is what the wife would feel. It doesn't mean she's learned from it.
Yeah.
I hope she did, but I don't know if she did, and so yeah, a horrible part of me is like, no, she goes right back to him, because that'd be horrible, but I could see it.
Yeah. And that is one of the great things about an ambiguous ending, is it leaves it up for conversation after you've watched, where it's like, what would you do? What would I do? Or what do you think she'll do? So I sort of love that.
Thank you.
um, Before we totally wrap up, I want to ask, do you have any advice for like beginner filmmakers or people who are just starting out? Like anything that you've learned along the way that you'd like to impart?
Yeah. I found, well, I find that when writing stuff that I'm going to direct and produce, it's better. It's been, at least in my career so far, it's been easier to produce things that are actually producible. So when you're writing it, locations already, or of places that exist already. And I've done that for a couple other projects.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just easier. But I also feel like the group I worked with, the guys that were my crew, they just were amazing. So I think, and the cast as well, they were just amazing. And we had this film camp-esque feel to it. It was a week in Connecticut. We met our actors, we cast them in New York. And then we met, but I think 2 out of 3 of them, we had cast from video auditions. So we'd never actually met them in person. And then we met them the day before we were going up to Connecticut together, and then spent the week together, living and shooting on the same location. And so I think you want to get really good people involved. You want to make it this collaborative environment, to make it really fun. And so that every day is like, oh, we get to make a film, instead of like, ugh, now we have to get up early to make a film, and the crew I worked with, from the minute I called my cinematographer and producer, Andrew, he was just as on board with the film as I was, and he was like, yeah, let's go make it, let's do this. And my co-director Ryan as well was just as excited, and it was kind of like we had these amazing film kids all together for a week rather, and it was just exciting. And so I think when for people who are up and coming, or not up and coming, but people who make films, you want to make sure you actually want to make the film, because it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of money and time and stress and problem solving. And so you definitely want to make it sure it's a passion project that you want to just spend like the next year, if it's editing, if it's pre-production, like whatever it is, you want to just be as excited to make it throughout the whole film. And I remember like when we'd shoot during the day, and then we'd watch our dailies until like 2 a.m, and it'd be like, we were so happy with them. And so throughout the whole process, even now we're in festival season, it's still just like, it's exciting to share, and it's exciting to the whole process should be fun. So I think for other filmmakers who are like, oh, I like this script, but I don't know, then trash it. Don't do it if you don't know. Make sure you're excited about it.
Right. That's awesome advice. Great. Well, thank you so much for talking.
Thank you so much for
really good.
asking. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you go. You have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Bye.